Welcome everyone to part 1 of this complete Blender tutorial series where I'm going to show you how to create this Sci-Fi Worker Robot in Blender. So this entire tutorial series is going to be completely free on my YouTube channel. So it's an 8-part tutorial series where I'll show you step by step in real time how to create this Sci-Fi Worker Robot in Blender. And we will be using Blender Eevee for this tutorial, but it also works really great in Cycles. Cycles is a little bit more realistic, so you could use Cycles if you want to, but I will be using Eevee, especially because we're going to be creating the animation as well. So in this part 1, we're going to start by modeling the robot's head. Then in part 2, we're going to be modeling the robot's neck. And then in part 3, we're going to be modeling the robot's body and the legs. And then in part 4, we're going to be modeling the robot's arms, so by the end of part 4, we will have all of the modeling finished. Then in part 5, we're going to set up some lighting, and then we're going to do all of the materials for the robot. And then in part 6, we will be rigging the robot. So we're going to be using a mechanical rigging method. So we will not be using bones in this tutorial. We'll be using a mechanical rigging method where you set the origin point to the center of where you want the object to rotate, and then you can parent other objects to it, and then also constrain the objects to just make it rotate how you want. So that's going to be in part 6. Then in part 7, we're going to be setting up the background, and we're going to render the final image. We'll put the robot in a cool pose and render the final image, and then we'll do a little bit of compositing to make the final image look very nice. And then in part 8, we will be animating the robot, so we'll have him kind of drive up, like in this animation here. He'll drive up, kind of look around, and then he'll drive away. And then we will render out those frames, and then we'll put them in Blender's video editor to get the final render. Now this entire tutorial series is going to be completely free on my YouTube channel, and all of the resources that you need will be free. But I am trying to create Blender tutorials and Blender content for a living, so if you'd like to help support me and my YouTube channel, some great places to do that are over on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page. So on my Gumroad store and Patreon page, you can get the finished project files of this tutorial, and also on my Gumroad and Patreon, you can get 3D models and assets, you can get the procedural materials that I create, and you can also get artwork project files and other tutorial files. And another great way to help support me and this channel is by checking out my Blender tutorial courses on Gumroad. I currently have 2 tutorial courses on my Gumroad store. So the first one is this one here, where I show you how to create this Martian environment in Blender. And then the second one is this one here, where I show you how to create this sci-fi space station corridor in Blender. Alright, so now let's go over all the resources that you'll need to follow along with the tutorial. So all of the resources are completely free, and I'll have all the links in the description. So the first resource is this Autoshop 01 HDR, and this is from polyhaven.com. So I'm going to be downloading the 1K version and the HDR version, and we're going to be using this to get some nice realistic lighting and reflections. And the second resource is this Metal Plate 018, and this is on 3dtextures.me. And we will be using this texture on the background wall for the final render and animation. So for this texture, you can just go down here and you can click on download all the maps, and it's going to take you to a Google Drive, and you can just click on this button and then you can just click on download. Alright, and then the next resource that we'll be using, again on 3dtextures.me, we're going to be downloading the Metal Plate 015. So we're going to be using this on the ground in the final render. So you can go down here and again just click on download all the map, and then just click on this button right here, and then you're just going to click on download. And then the last 2 resources are going to be on Pixabay. So on Pixabay, I'm going to be downloading this electricity symbol, or this electrical symbol. So if you don't already have an account with Pixabay, you can just create a free account, and then you can just download this image, and I'll be downloading the highest resolution. And then the last resource that we'll be using is this radioactivity symbol. So again, you can just create a free account with Pixabay, and then you can download this, and I'll be downloading the highest resolution. And we will be adding both of these symbols on the sides of the robot to give him some more detail. Alright, so here here we are in a fresh new scene in Blender. Now, if you want to see the screencast keys, they're going to be right down here in the corner so that as we're doing the tutorial, you can see which buttons I'm pressing. So let's get started by modeling the robot's head. So I'm just going to press A couple of times to select everything, and I can just press X, and then we want to delete. So to create the robot's head, I'm going to press Shift A, and we're going to add a cube. All right, I'm going to press the period key on the numpad just to zoom over to the cube. Now let's save this Blender file so that as we're working on it, we can just press Ctrl S to save, and then if Blender crashes for some reason, we won't lose anything. So to save this file, let's just click on File, and then click on Save, or you can press Ctrl S. And then I'll just save this Blender file in a folder on my computer, and I will just click on Save Blender File. And then as we're working on the project, you can just press Ctrl S, and it's going to save the file. All right, so I'm first just going to tab into edit mode, and I want to add a loop cut here so that we can cut the cube in half, and then we will be adding a mirror modifier. Now it's really important that when I press Ctrl R, I add a loop cut going along the y-axis, because if you press 1 to go to front view, this is going to be the front view, and if you press 3, that's going to the side view. So when you press Ctrl R, just add a loop cut going along the y-axis. So I'm going to just left click and then right click so it hops back to the center. So I'm now just going to select this vertex, and then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to shift select all of these vertices. I can now just press X, and I want to delete the vertices. And then also this timeline right here, we don't really need this right now. We will be using it later for the animation, but we don't need it right now. So to get rid of it, I'm going to click right here, and when the crosshair appears, I can click, drag up, drag down, and then let go to close the timeline. All right, so let's now add the mirror modifier. So I'm going to click right over here on the modifier properties, and then I can click on add modifier, and we want to add the mirror modifier. So now it's going to mirror it over on the other side. And then also, if I press A to select everything, I can press G to grab, but you can see the mirror is now splitting. So I want to just escape that. I want to turn on this clipping button right here on the mirror settings. So if I turn on clipping, now if I press G to grab, you can see that it's going to be connected even when you try to pull it apart. All right, that's good. Let's press Ctrl S to save. So I want the robot's head to be kind of a triangular shape. So what I'm going to do is select this vertex and then hold down the Shift key and select this vertex. I'm now going to press Ctrl B, and Ctrl B is going to add a bevel. So I'm just going to bring this bevel out to something like that, and then just click to place that. And then I also want to double tap the A key to select everything, and I'll press S to scale, and I want to press Z, and we're going to scale that down on the Z axis. And then I want to select this vertex and shift select this vertex, and I'll press G to grab. We'll bring it down on the Z axis, and I'll just bring it down like that. And then I'm also going to press 1 on my numpad to go to the front view, and I want to press Z, move my mouse over and let go to go into the wireframe view. I'll press A to deselect everything, and then I will just press B for the box select, and I'll just click and drag, and I'm going to box select these two vertices. So back on front view, I can press G to grab, and I'll bring it over on the X axis, and I'm just going to bring that over like that. So you can kind of see now we're getting a kind of a cool sci-fi shape for the robot's head. Although I do think that's a little bit too far, so I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. All right, so I'm now just going to double tap the A key to select everything, and I want to press G to grab, and we're going to bring it over on the Y axis, actually the X axis, because I want to make the robot's head a bit thicker. All right, so that is pretty good, but I do want to scale the robot's head up a bit as well. So let's just tab back into object mode, and I'll press S to scale, and I want to scale that up a little bit. Now, if you zoom kind of far out, you can see that there are grids here. So I want to scale this out so that from the blue line right here, this is coming almost out to 2 grids. So you can see here's 1 grid, and then here's 2 grids. So I want it to be kind of about here. I just want to scale it out this big so that it's just a little bit short than 2 of those grids long. So I'm going to tab back into edit mode now, and I want to press Z, move my mouse over and let go to go into wireframe, and then I'll press A to deselect everything. So I just want to press B for the box select. I'm going to click and drag, and I just want to box select this again. I'll press G to grab, click and hold and let go to constrain it to the x-axis, and I would just want to bring that over a little bit more, so something like that. So that is the shape that I'm going for for the robot's head. So I can press Z, move over to solid view, and let go. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's tab into edit mode again, and I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view. Now you can see that I actually cut it the opposite way. So if I press 3 to go to side view, you can see that we're seeing the mirrored object, but not the original object. And I don't really want that. I just want it to be mirrored over here, and that way it'll be a little bit easier to use. So I'm going to tab back into object mode, and I want to select this modifier, and I'm going to press Control A. So just hover your mouse over the modifier and press Control A, and that will apply it. I can now tab into edit mode, and I'm going to use the box select, and I'm just going to box select all the vertices on this side. So I can now press X to delete, and I want to delete the vertices. So now I can click on add modifier, and I can add the mirror modifier, and now you can see that our actual mesh is on this side, and then the mirror is on that side. So if I press 3 to go to side view, that is much better. All right, so let's tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press 3 on the numpad to go to side view. I'm now going to press Z, move my mouse over and let go to go into wireframe, and I'll press A to deselect everything, and then I'm just going to click and drag, and I'm going to box select these front vertices. So I can now press G to grab, click and hold with my mouse wheel and let go to constrain it to the Y-axis, and I want to bring it out so that it's 2 grids. So you can see here is 1 grid, and then here is 2 grids. So if you kind of zoom out, you can see there's 1 grid and 2 grids, so I want it to be about 2 grids long. And then I'm going to press Control I, and Control I is going to invert the selection, so now this is selected instead of this. So we now have the back selected, so I'm going to press G to grab, we're going to bring it over on the Y-axis, and I'm going to make it about 3 grids long. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3 grids long. I'm now going to press Control R to add a loop cut, and I'm going to click and drop the loop cut there, and then I'm going to bring the loop cut over so it's about 1.5 grids long, so kind of about there, and I'll just click to place that. I'm now going to press A to deselect everything, and then using the box select, I'm just going to box select the back vertices. I'm now going to deselect everything, and then using the box select, I'm just going to box select these vertices down here. So I'm now going to press G to grab, and I'm going to bring it up on the Z axis. And I'm just going to bring it up to about here. Then I'm going to box select the top one right here, and I'll press G to grab, and I'll bring it over about half a grid. So it's about kind of in the middle of this grid, just like that. So if we go back into solid view, you can see what's happening. So this is like the back of the robot's head. Now I want to bring this part in closer to the mirror. So I'm going to first hold down the shift key and deselect these top vertices. I'm now going to press 7 to go to top view. That's going to take us to the top view. And then also make sure the clipping is turned on. That is very important. So I'll now press G to grab, and we're going to bring it in on the X-axis, and I'm going to bring it in so it's just about 1 grid. So 1 grid out to about there, click to place that. So using the box select, I'm now just going to box select all of the back vertices. I'll press 3 again to go to side view, and I'm now just going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this out. And I'll bring it out so it's just slightly farther than this grid right here. So 1, 2, 3. So just slightly farther than 3 grids back. So I'm going to pull out of the side view, and I now just want to select this vertex and then hold down the shift key and select this vertex. So I am now going to press Control B, and Control B will add a bevel, and I'm just going to bevel it down like that. Just about there, just click to place it like that. So we now have this face kind of going down like that. So this is going to be the back of the robot's head, and then this will be the front of the robot's head. So let's go over here to the front, and then I'm going to press the 3 on the top of my keyboard, or you can click right here to go to the face select. I'm now going to select this front face, and I want to inset the face so that there is a face inside of a face. So I'm going to press the I key, and that is going to inset the face. Now before I click to place that, I want to press the B key, and the B key is going to toggle the boundary. Right up here you can see it says boundary on and off. So I want to turn the boundary off, and that way it's going to connect with the mirror modifier. You can see if I toggle B, it's going to change that. So I'll just scale it to about right there, and then I'll click to place that. So I'm now just going to select the face that's in the middle, and I'm going to press E, and we are going to extrude that back. So I'll just extrude it back a little bit, just like that. Alright, so now I want to add some little vents on the side of the robot's head. So to do that, I'm going to press Control R to add a loop cut, and I'm going to click, and then I'm just going to bring this over a little bit, and then click to place that. Then I'm going to press Control R again, and I'm going to add another loop cut over here, and I'm just going to bring that over, and then click to place it about there. So now I want to add 3 little vents. So I'm going to press Control R to add a loop cut, and I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out until there are 4 loop cuts. So because there are 4 loop cuts, there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces. So now that I've added those 4 loop cuts, I'm gonna left click and then right click so it's in the very center. So now what I wanna do is add a loop cut on the side. So I'll press Ctrl R. I'm gonna add a loop cut here. So I'll click and drag up and then just drop the loop cut right there. Then I'm gonna press Ctrl R again. We're gonna add another loop cut and I'll bring this one down just a little bit to about there. All right, so I can now press 3 on the top of my keyboard or click right here to go to the face select. And I now just want to select the faces right in here, and then we will extrude them back to create those little vent details. So I'm gonna select this face, and then I will hold down the shift key, and I'm gonna shift select these other faces. So now I can extrude these back in, so I'll press E to extrude, and I'm just gonna extrude them back in, not too far, just a little bit like that. So now we have these cool sci-fi vents. Alright, now if you zoom in here, you can see that the edges are very sharp, and so to make that more realistic, I'm going to click on Add Modifier, and we are going to go right down here under Generate, and we're going to add a Bevel modifier. Now right here on the segments, I'm going to turn this up to 4, and then also I'm going to use the Object Context menu to shade this object smooth. And then right here on the amount, I need to turn this amount way down so that it's much smaller. So we're going to turn the amount down pretty small. All right, let's press Ctrl S again to save this project. Now, if we navigate over to the back here, you can see there is a bit of a problem here. And if I tab into edit mode, you can see there is a problem with the loop cuts. So the loop cuts should be going all the way around over to the mirror. And then if you go into object mode, you're also not able to see anything right here. You're not able to see a break in that angle. Kind of like this, you can see there's a break in the angle, but you're not able to see it right here. And I do want to be able to see it right here. So to fix this, I first need to fix this loop cut problem, and then we'll address the other one. So to fix this, I'm going to press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. Click and drag, and I'm just going to drop a loop cut right there. Then I'll press Ctrl R, we're going to add another loop cut, and I'm going to bring this one down here. So I'm now going to use Blender's knife tool to cut in between here. So to use the knife tool, I'm going to press K for knife, and you can see there's a little knife icon. So what I'm going to do is click right here, drag over, click right here, and then we're going to press the enter button, and that is going to add a cut right in there. So I want to do the same thing right here. So I'm going to press K for the knife tool. We're going to click right here, drag over, and then click right there, and then I'll press enter to place that. Alright, so that is very good. We now have that loop cut going all the way over. But if I tab back into object mode, you're still not able to see that right there. There's not a crease right there. And also, if you tab into edit mode, you can see there should be some crease here because there is a change in angle there. Now, this problem is happening because on default, the bevel modifier has a limit method. So right now, the limit method is set to 30. And so this is telling the bevel modifier to only add a bevel where the angle is bigger than 30. But I want to make this much smaller, so I'm going to change this angle to 12 instead, and that way now you're able to see that crease right there, and also you're able to see a crease right there, and that looks much better. All right, now back over on the vents here, I want to squish in the vents a little bit because I don't quite like the size of them. So I'm going to press the Z button, move over and go into wireframe, and then I'm going to press 1 on the top of my keyboard or click right here to the vertex select, and then using the box select, I can just click and drag a box around there, and that way it's going to select all of those loops. So I can now press S to scale, and we're going to scale it on the Y-axis, and I'm just going to make it a bit thinner, and then just click to place that. So something like that. And then also you could move it over a little bit. I think I'll bring it slightly more forward. So let's tab back into edit mode, and I'd want to add a few more details on the front of the face. So what I want to do is I want this loop cut to be going all the way around here, and this loop cut to be going over as well. And that way I can extrude in this face right here. The problem with that right now is that this is actually just one big face, and these loop cuts aren't going over here into the mirror. So what I'm going to do is press 3 or click right here to the face select, and I'm just going to select this face. So I can now just delete it. So I'm just going to press X, and we're going to delete the faces. So if I now press 1 or go to the vertex select, I'm going to select this vertex, and then I'll hold down the shift key and select this vertex. So I can now press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude it on the X-axis, and we're just going to push it together so it connects to the mirror. So I can now just select this vertex, shift select this vertex, and I can press F, and that is going to fill that face. Then right down here, I'm going to select this vertex here, and I'll press E to extrude. I'll bring it over on the X-axis and just bring it in, and then I can shift. I'm going to hold down the shift key and select all of these vertices right here. So I can now press F, and that is going to fill that face. And then I'm also going to select this vertex and shift select this vertex, and I can press F, and that is going to fill that. So now we have those loops, and the loops are going all the way over. So I'm now going to select this vertex, and then I'll hold down the shift key and select this vertex and this vertex. I now want to edge slide this so that I can bring it down a little bit. So I'm going to double tap the G key, and that will activate the edge slide. And I'm just going to bring this down a little bit and then just click to place that. And then I want to do the same thing up here. So I'm going to select this, shift select this and this. So all of those three are selected. And I accidentally selected this one up here. So I'll just shift and deselect it. So I just have these three selected. I can now double tap the G key, and that's going to do the edge slide, and I'll just bring it up just like that. So I'm now going to press 3 on the top of my keyboard, or just click right here on the face select. I'm just going to select this top face right here. So not the very top one, but this big one right here. And I'm going to press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude it back even farther. So just like that. So now we have that little lip there, and we have more detail on the front of the face. So I'm now going to move my view over here to the side because I want to select this face right here. So I'm going to press I, and I is going to inset this face, and I'm just going to bring it down to about like that. Click to place that. Then I want to press S to scale, and I'm going to scale it on the Y axis, and I'm just going to bring it in a little bit. So I can now press E to extrude, and I'm going to extrude this back and just add a little detail. Click to place that, so we now just have another little detail there on the side of the face. Alright, so I now want to add a little metal plate on the top here, but I don't want to model it within this object's edit mode, because if I model it in edit mode, it's going to mirror it over, and I don't want it to be mirrored over. So I'm going to tab back into object mode. So I'm going to press Shift C, and Shift C will make sure this 3D cursor is in the very center of our scene. So I can now press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. So let's press G and Z, we're going to bring it up, and then I can tab into edit mode, and I'll press S to scale. We're going to scale it on the Z axis, and I'm just going to make it much smaller, just like that. And then if you just press 3 or click right here to the face select, I'm just going to select the bottom face, and then I can press X, and I want to delete the faces. So I'm now going to press Control R, and I'm going to add 2 loop cuts. So I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel until there are 2 loop cuts, and then I'm going to left click and right click so it just stays in the center there. So I can now press S to scale, and I want to scale it out on the X axis, just scale it out like that. And then I can press S to scale, and I'll also scale it on the Y axis, and I'll just bring that out like that. And then I want to double tap the A key to select everything, and I'll press S to scale. We're going to scale it in on the X axis, and I'll also scale the entire thing out on the X axis a little bit. And then if you need to, you can press 1 to go to the vertex select. You can hold down the Alt key and Alt select this loop, and then hold down the Shift and Alt key and Shift Alt select that loop. And then you can press S to scale. You can scale it in on the X axis if you'd like to just bring that in a little bit. So just like that. So I'll press S to scale. We're going to scale the whole thing down in object mode. I'll press G and Z. We're going to bring it in and just stick it right there so that it's just going into the robot's head. Then I can press G to grab, bring it over on the Y axis, and G to grab again, bring it over. And then I think I want to press S to scale, and we're going to scale the whole thing out, or just scale the whole thing up a little bit and maybe bring it forward a little bit. So just like that. Now you can see that it's very sharp. So again, I want to click on Add Modifier on this object, and I want to add the Bevel modifier under Generate. And then again, just like the other object, I want to set the segments to 4 so that it's more subdivided. And then I want to shade that smooth so that it's very smooth. Now right now it looks kind of blobby, and that is because the amount is too high. So on this amount here on the bevel, I just need to turn the amount down. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and then click and drag. And I'm just going to make this amount very small, so just something like that. And there we go. So we now have a little sci-fi plate right there. Alright, so I now want to create 2 antennas, and the antennas are going to come out of this metal plate. So again, I'm going to press Shift C to center the 3D cursor, and then I'm going to press Shift A, and I'm going to go right down here under Mesh, and I'm going to add a cylinder. Now right behind me, if you click on the Add Cylinder settings right there, I'm going to change the vertices to 12 because I don't need it to be quite that high detail, so I'm just going to change it to 12. So I can now press G to grab. We're going to bring it up on the Z axis. I'll press S to scale. We're going to scale it down, and then I'll press G to grab, and we're just going to stick it right there. So just like that. And I will bring this one forward a little bit more. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to go to the face select, and I'm just going to select this face. I can now press G to grab, bring it up on the Z axis, and I'll zoom out here, scale it up a little bit more, and then I'll press S to scale, and we're going to scale that a bit down. I'm going to zoom out here and I'll just bring it up on the z-axis a little bit more, maybe like that, and then I'll press S to scale, and we're going to scale that down a little bit. So it kind of gets smaller as it goes up. All right, so now let's shade this object smooth with the object context menu. Now, when I shaded this smooth, you can see that there are some shading issues, and that is because I need to add some more loop cuts. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and then just make sure you have this top face selected, and then you can go over here to go to the vertex select. I'm now going to press Control B, and that'll add a bevel, and then I want to scroll my mouse wheel out 2 times so that we have more loops, and then I'll just click to place that. So that way, that's going to fix a lot of those shading issues. Now, we still have some weird shading issues right here. You can see it's kind of getting a bit dark, and to fix that, I'm going to zoom in here, tab into edit mode, and it's a little bit hard to see. If you need to, you can kind of bring it up, tab into edit mode, and then I actually want to delete this bottom face. So I'm going to go to the face select, click right here. I'm just going to select the bottom face, and I'll press X to delete, and I can just delete the faces. And I can tab back into object mode, and I can now press G and Z. We're going to bring that down on the Z axis just like that, and that is looking much better. All right, so I now want to select this, and I want to create one more. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate. We're going to bring it over on the Y axis, and I'll bring it kind of back here, just like that. So I'm now going to tab into edit mode, and I actually want to go back to the vertex select, and I'm going to just box select the top vertices. So just make sure the top vertices are selected. I can now press X to delete, and we just want to delete the vertices. So I can now press Z, move my mouse over to go into wireframe, and you can see we just have that bottom loop. So I'm going to press A to select it, and then I can press E to extrude. We want to press Z to extrude it up on the Z axis and just bring it up like that. Now it is a little bit thick right now and I want to make it smaller. So I'm just going to double tap the A key to select everything, and then I can press S to scale. Now I don't want to scale it on the Z axis, I just want to scale it on the X and Y. So to not scale it on the Z axis, after I press S to scale, I'm going to press Shift Z. So I'll just make that a bit smaller and then just click to place that. All right, I'm going to zoom in here and then hold down the Alt key, and I need to Alt select that loop of vertices. I can also press the period on the numpad just to zoom over to it. So I'll press E to extrude, and then immediately after that, I'll press S to scale, and I want to scale that out a bit. Click to place that. Then I can press E to extrude, and we're going to bring it up on the Z axis. Just bring it up like that, and then I can press F to fill that face. All right, just like that. And then using the object context menu, I'm going to shade this object smooth. And then I want to add some bevels here as well, because you can see it looks pretty smooth, and I want to sharpen that up. So I'm going to tab back into edit mode, and I'll press Control R, and we're going to scroll out. And then also I don't need that many loops, so I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel just so that there is one cut in between. Click to place that, just like that. I can go down here, and I'm going to Alt select that loop. I'll press Control B again, and just click to place that. And then again, I want to Alt and select that loop, and I'll press Control B, and then just click to place that. All right, that is much better. Now we actually need to recalculate the normals because you can see that the shading is a bit off, and that is basically because this object is sort of flipped inside out. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I just want to double tap the A key to make sure everything is selected. I can now press Shift N, and Shift N will recalculate the normals. And now you can see the shading looks better, so the dark part is over here, and that is the same with all the other objects. And then this is just slightly tall, so I'll press G and Z, and we're going to bring it down. Maybe also bring it over a little bit. Maybe bring both of these down just a little. All right, so that is looking much better. Let's press Control S again to save. So let's add another detail now, kind of on the chin or the bottom of the head, kind of right here on the robot. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press 3 to go to the face select, and then I'm just going to select this face. So I'm now going to press I to inset, and then also you can press B if you need to toggle the boundary. So I want it to be connected to the mirror. So I'm just going to bring that down and then just click to place that. Then I can press S to scale, and I'm going to scale it on the Y axis, and I'll just make that a bit smaller, and then just click to place that. You can also press G to grab and bring it over on the X axis if you want to push it in. And then I do want it to be just a little bit closer to the front of the face, so I'll press G to grab, and I'm going to bring it over on the Y axis and then just click to place that. All right, just like that. So I can now press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that up a little bit and then just click to place it. So we have another little detail there on the robot's head. All right, so let's navigate over to the back of the robot's head, and I want to create some little sci-fi details kind of in the back of the head. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I just want to select this face right here, and then I want to press I to inset it, and again, press B to make sure the boundary is turned off. So I can now press E to extrude, but I don't want to extrude it on the normal because extruding it on the normal is the way the face is pointing. I want to instead extrude it on the Y-axis. So I'm going to extrude it into the robot's head. So just bring it in a little bit, not too far, and then click to place it right about there. Now this is really angled and I want to flatten this face. So I'll press S to scale, and I want to scale it on the Y-axis. So I'm going to hit Y, and then I want to type 0, enter, and that way it's going to flatten that face. So now we just have that little opening there in the back of the robot's head, and you can also press G to grab and bring it over on the Y-axis if you want to make it a little bit bigger. All right, just like that. All right, so let's tab into edit mode, and I want to select this face right here, and I want to create some little like sci-fi box things just to give some little sci-fi details in the robot's head. So I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate, and we're going to duplicate this face and bring it down. Now because we have the clipping turned on the mirror, it's going to merge this together, and I want to separate this. So I'm just going to turn the clipping off on the mirror. I'll press G to grab, we're going to bring it over, and then I can turn the clipping back on. So I can now press S to scale. We're going to scale that down a little bit. Let's also press S and Y, and we're going to bring it up on the Y-axis. And then you can press G to grab and kind of bring that in a little bit. And then I also want to scale it on the X-axis to make it a bit thinner, and we'll bring it down just like that. So I can now press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude this up, and we're going to bring it into the robot's head just like that. Now if you navigate inside the robot's head, you can see we have some extra faces here, and we don't actually need these faces because we're not going to see them. So I'm going to select the faces, and I'll press X to delete. We can delete the faces, and then I'll delete that face as well, just like that. Now you can see that the normals need to be recalculated because when I extruded them out, they kind of got flipped inside out. And why I know that's happening is because you can see there's shadows right here, but then the shadows on this one are kind of over here. So the shading is not correct. So I'm going to hover my mouse over this object, and I'm going to press the L key. So when you press the L key, that is going to select all of these vertices which are linked to each other. So this is one object kind of by itself. So I'm now going to press Shift N, and Shift N will recalculate the normals, and now the shading looks correct. So back in edit mode now, I want to press S to scale and G to grab, and I want to make this a bit smaller. I'll also scale it down on the X-axis just so that there's a bit more space there. So I can now press Shift D to duplicate, and I'm going to bring this one over on the X-axis. Then I can press G to grab, and we're going to bring it up on the Z-axis. And then I also want to press G to grab, and we're going to bring it in a bit on the Y-axis. And then I want to make this box quite a bit thicker, so I'll press S to scale that, and I want to scale it out on the X-axis, just like that. So I now want to add some metal plates, which are kind of going along here. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I want to just select this bottom face right here. I can now press Shift D to duplicate it, and I'll bring it up, and then I can press G to grab. We're going to bring it over on the Y-axis, and I'll just push that in, and then I'll bring it down a little bit. And then I want to press S to scale. We're going to scale it on the X-axis, and I want to scale it until it's all the way over. So I'm scaling this plane up so that it's connecting to the mirror, and it's also going through here so you can't see the end of it. All right, and you can also bring this down on the Z-axis if you need to. So I can now press E to extrude. We're going to extrude that up, and then just place it right there. And then I need to hover my mouse over this object and press L, and that'll select all of the linked vertices. And I can now press Shift N, and that will recalculate the normals. And then I also want to bring this down just a little. So I now want to create just one more of these pieces. So I'll press Shift D to duplicate. We're going to bring it up on the Z-axis, and then just click to place that right there. Now again, if you go inside the robot's head, you can see there are a few extra faces, and we don't really need that. So we can just delete those faces, and that way the topology will be just a little bit less. So I'm going to select this face, and I'm going to Shift and select all of these other faces. So that those are selected, I'll press X to delete, and we just want to delete the faces, just like that. All right, so now we have some cool sci-fi details in there. Now I do want to add a few more sci-fi details kind of right here. So I'm going to tab into edit mode again, and I'll just select this face, and I'll press Shift D to duplicate it. And we're going to bring this face right down here, and I'll also press S to scale. We're going to scale it down, and kind of bring it down like that. I can now bring it over, not all the way to the end, but kind of over like that. And then I also want to make it pretty thin, so I'll scale it down so it's pretty small. So I can now press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude this out, and I'm just going to stick it right in there. And then again, if you go inside the robot's head, we have some extra faces. So I'm just going to press X to delete. We're going to delete both of those faces just like that. And then again, we need to recalculate the normals. So I'm going to press L with my mouse hovered over this object, and I'll press Shift N to recalculate the normals. And then I also want to scale it out. So I'll press S to scale, and I want to scale it out on the Y-axis just so that it's a little bit thicker. So I'm now just going to tab back into edit mode, and I'll just make sure this entire thing is selected. So again, you can just press L, and that is going to select the linked vertices. So I can now press Shift D, and we're going to duplicate that, and I'll just bring it over on the X-axis and then just click to place it right there. And then I'm just going to select this face right here, and I'll press Shift D to duplicate. I'm going to bring it over on the X-axis, and I'm just going to push this one right in there. And then I can press E to extrude, and we're going to extrude that back up. And then once again, we have some extra faces in here, so I can just delete the faces that are inside there that we can't see. So again, the normals need to be recalculated, so I can just press L to select this, and then I'm going to press Shift N, and that'll recalculate the normals. Alright, so now let's model the robot's eye or the robot's camera. So I'm going to press Shift C again to center the 3D cursor. I'll now press Shift A, and to create this eye, I'm going to add a UV sphere. I'll press G to grab, I'll bring it over on the Y-axis so it's kind of in the front here, and then I can press R to rotate, and I'm going to rotate this on the X-axis. So I want the eye to be pointed forward, so I'm actually going to type in 90 and then enter, and that way it's going to rotate it over by 90 degrees. I can now tab into edit mode, and I want to delete all of this stuff back here because we only need half of it. So I'm going to press 1 to go to the vertex select, and then I can also press 3 on the numpad to go to side view. And then I want to go into wireframe so I can see through it. So to go into wireframe, I'll press Z, hold down the Z button, go to the wireframe, and then let go, and that'll go into wireframe. So I'll press A to deselect everything, and then I'm just going to click with the box select, and I'm just going to box select that. I can now press X to delete, and I just want to delete all of the vertices. So now we just have half of that eye. So I now want to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to Alt and select this ring of vertices, just like that. And then I want to press E to extrude, and then I'll press S to scale, and I'll scale the entire thing up just like that. And then I'll click to place that. So we're basically just creating a little metal lip kind of on the side there before the camera starts. Then I'll press E to extrude, and I want to extrude it back on the Y-axis. So I'll just click with my mouse wheel and then let go. Bring it over on the Y-axis, and then just click to place that. Now I do want to squish the camera down a little bit. I don't want to squish it down very much, but I do just want to make it slightly flatter. So I'm going to press A to select the entire thing, and I'll press S to scale, and then I want to scale it on the Y-axis, and I'll just scale it just a little bit, and then just click to place that. So it's just going to be slightly flatter. Alright, that is good, and then you can see it's still quite blocky, so using the object context menu, I'm going to shade this object smooth, and that is much smoother. Now the problem with shading it smooth is that now it looks too smooth, and you can't really see that sharpness, so I just need to tab into edit mode, and I just need to add some bevels on these loops. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and I'm going to Alt and select this ring of vertices. I'm just going to press Ctrl B, and then I'm going to scroll my mouse wheel out 2 times, and then I'll click to place that. So now there's just a little bevel there, and then I'll Alt and select that ring of vertices, and I'm just going to press Ctrl B and just make a tiny little bevel, and then click to place it. Alright, let's tab back into object mode. You can see that is looking much better. Now if you look on the side here, you can see there's still some sharpness kind of there on the side. You can see that's not perfectly smooth. So to make it even more smooth, I'm going to add the subsurf modifier. So to add the subsurf, the shortcut key is Control 1. And Control 1 will add the subdivision surface, and you can see now that is very, very smooth. Now right over here on the subdivision surface, I'm just going to have the viewport and render both to 1 because we just need one subdivision. So now that is nice and smooth. So I can now just place this on the front of the face. So I'll press S to scale, we'll scale that down. Then I can press G to grab, we're going to bring it on the Y-axis. Just stick that into place like that. And then I just need to press S to scale. We're going to scale the whole thing down a little bit. And I can also press 1 to go to the front view and just see how that is looking. And I will just scale it a tiny bit more down. And then I'll also press G and Z and bring it up just a little. All right, so that is pretty good. Now I do want to add one more camera or sensor. So to do that, I'll just press Shift D, and Shift D will duplicate the object. And then I'll press S to scale, and we're just going to add one more right there. Maybe it's a camera, or maybe it's like a motion sensor or something like that. And then I can also press G to grab, and we're going to bring it in on the y-axis just like that. All right, so there we go. This is starting to look a little bit like a robot. Let's press Control S again to save, and then there's one more thing I'm going to be doing in this part. I'm going to add the little lights right here on the side of the robot's head, so just right there. So to add the lights, I'm going to press Shift C again to center the 3D cursor, so just press Shift C, then I'll press Shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. So I can now press G to grab, and I'll press S to scale, bring that way down. I can press period on the numpad to zoom into it, and I'll just bring it kind of in there in the robot's head. So just like that. Let's tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press S to scale. I'm going to scale it out on the x-axis, so just press X to scale it on the x-axis, and I'm going to bring this out like that, and then I also want to scale it up just a little like that, and then in object mode, I think I will just bring it over like that. Alright, so I now just want to create one of them, and then we will duplicate it to make a second one. Now, one thing we can do right back here is we can delete this face, because we're not going to be able to see this face. So I'm going to go to the face select, I can select this face, and then I will press X to delete, and we want to delete the faces. And then you can see it is a bit thick right now, so I'm going to press A to select everything, and I'll scale it, and I'm going to scale it on the y-axis and just make it pretty thin, just like that. And then I could scale the whole thing up just a little. Now this is very blocky, and I do want it to be much smoother, so I'm going to press Control 2, and Control 2 will add a subdivision surface with 2 levels. You can also just click on Add Modifier and add a subdivision surface, and just make sure the viewport and render is both set to 2. Alright, so I can now, with the object context menu, shade this smooth, but that isn't really the shape that I want. I want to make it a bit sharper. So I'm going to press Control R, and I'm going to add a loop cut going sideways. So I'm going to left click and then right click, so it just hops it back to the center. Then I can press S to scale, and I want to scale it on the x-axis, and I'm just going to bring that out a little bit. And then I can select everything and maybe scale it up a little bit more. All right, so I want to make this a bit sharper kind of right here because I don't really want it to be an oval. So I'll press Control R, and I want to scroll my mouse wheel out until there are 2 loop cuts. And then I can left click and right click so it stays in the center. Then I can press S to scale, and I want to scale this on the x-axis, and I'll bring this out much closer to the side. All right, so there we go. You can see we're kind of getting that shape that I want, and that is going to be lit up. It's kind of going to be a little light. Now, this is kind of round, and I do want this to be a bit sharper. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to press Control R, and I'm going to add a loop cut right here. So I'll click and drag that over, and then just click to place that. So that is much sharper. And then you can also bring this in to the robot's head if you wanted to. So I now just want to duplicate this and make another one down here. So I'll tab into edit mode. I'm just going to double tap the A key to select everything. And I will now press Shift D to duplicate. I'll press Z to bring it down on the Z axis, and I'll just place it right there. And then just kind of zoom out here. And if you want to, you could bring this up or bring it over. Just adjust this till it's at the spot that you like. Alright, so just press Control S again to save, and this is going to wrap it up for part 1 of the Sci-Fi Worker Robot tutorial series. So I hope you were easily able to follow along, and I hope you've been enjoying it so far. So if you want to go ahead and watch part 2, in part 2 we are going to be creating the robot's neck. So when part 2 is released, it'll be right up there on the end screen, and you can also find the link in the description. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in part 2 of the tutorial series.